Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the Fools on Stools podcast. As always, my name is Kevin Walker, and I'm joined by my co-star Cullen Brown, and while our friend Anthony Council is on IR, we have our baseball man, a.k.a. Mr. Wikipedia, Tyler Luker. Tyler, thank you for coming on to the show today. But boys, today we're going to be talking about the NFL, some college football, some predictions that we got, an update on MLB and the playoff race as we edge closer and closer to October. Another edition of Luker's Lock, hopefully that can be a success. Max Verstappen wins again, no surprise, and a look ahead to Monza. And topping it off with an emotional Sue Bird send-off, but a look ahead to the WNBA playoffs/finals. Boys, how are we feeling today?
Feeling pretty good, man. Yeah, like you said, you touched on it. Anthony is not joining us today. He is on the COVID protocol list. Anthony, if you're out there listening, man, we appreciate you. We hope you get better soon, and we'd love to have you back in the studio, man.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony, you're irreplaceable, but hopefully I can fill the shoes at least to some extent. But I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, it's not you're definitely. I wouldn't say it's a downgrade. That's for sure.
I mean, I think everybody brings their own equal
That's what I'm saying.
difference.
So it's not a downgrade.
Because,
Tyler's going to bring his stuff.
Yeah, Tyler's going to bring his stuff. He's going to bring us his knowledge on baseball.
Yeah.
And that's a lot that we don't have. And then Anthony, if he's here, he's going to bring his charisma, his characteristic of just loud and UNT pride.
Yeah. It's just up to Tyler about it's just going to be up to Tyler about how much of an impact he's going to make today. So I'm interested to see.
You're on the hot seat.
Yeah.
No, good luck to me.
Without any further ado, though, let's talk about it's back. It's back. We're less than 1 day away. The NFL season is here after long waits of talking about a bunch of stuff that we pretended mattered that doesn't matter at all. Contracts, holdouts, hold-ins, trades, you name it. It's finally here. The real deal. Football. Clashing. It's here.
Football is back.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man.
Sunday relaxation.
It feels so good to say that. The NFL season does kick off tomorrow night with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles. First game of many this season, and I cannot be more excited. I know my two co-stars are very ready for this as well. We're going to get into all the storylines, maybe even make a couple little cheeky predictions, and get into everything that the season has to offer. For, either one of you to answer, what is the biggest storyline this season that you are most excited to see play out, in your opinion?
Personally, I think the most exciting / tempting storyline to talk about is the Buffalo Bills. I'm not going to jump on... I hate to jump on the hype train. I think if you looked on Good Morning Football, I think literally everybody who picked the AFC Super Bowl match picked the Buffalo Bills. And I know Josh Allen is on a potential MVP watch. But I'm just excited to see how they're going to play. We've seen Josh Allen get better every single year, no matter what. We saw him go literally toe-to-toe with Kansas City Chiefs last year in an unbelievable game. I'm just excited to see if Buffalo can actually finally win their first Super Bowl and what that road is going to look like for them.
What about you, Tyler?
For me, other than the Bills, Bills-Rams, we're looking at a potential Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah.
But for me, the biggest storyline of the season is this Brady's send-off year.
Okay.
The man is 45 years old. He's got a beautiful offense, beautiful defense. Can they put it all together and ride him off into the sunset like Peyton Manning did with the Broncos? Who knows? But they're gearing up for a great year. I'm very excited for this season to see what Tom Brady's potential send-off can be.
Yeah, no, that's those are two really good storylines. Obviously Tom Brady and Josh Allen, two of the best quarterbacks in the game. You can't go wrong with that. To me personally, it's going to be how each of the Super Bowl participants fare this year. Obviously the Los Angeles Rams did come away with the Super Bowl win over the Cincinnati Bengals this past season. Cooper Kupp winning Super Bowl MVP. Sean McVay arguably now has the crown of the best offensive mind and may be the best coach, dare I say, in football right now. Him having the benefit of having the best defensive player in the game, Aaron Donald, the best corner, Jalen Ramsey, those guys all return. Matthew Stafford, after winning his first, playoff game, Super Bowl, all of that. in his first year with the LA Rams. It'll be very interesting to see how this team responds after winning the Super Bowl, if they're still got that hunger, that fight, that will to want to win. And then, of course, on the other side, the Bengals, Joe Burrow, coming from last place to shocking everybody and leading that Cincinnati Bengals team with that porous offensive line all the way to the Super Bowl, and arguably about a throw away from winning the Super Bowl. They did reload on the offensive line in the offseason. I think they had a really good draft, in my opinion. Maybe not one of the more high-key ones, but definitely filled a lot of needs. And, of course, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase was one of the connections that NFL fans fell in love with if you weren't a, Ravens, Steelers, or Browns fan for sure. But, it's going to be very interesting to see because Super Bowl losers, there's always that stigma. How do they respond after a tough loss like that? Those are going to be two teams that I'm going to be really looking for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think all of us, I brought up pretty good storylines, but I think Tyler's storyline on Tom Brady is really interesting because we don't know. We never have known a whole lot of what's going on inside the mind of the great Tom Brady. We didn't know a lot until his documentary Man in the Arena came out. There's been a lot of speculation. He missed some time during practice. Some people are mad about it. Some people are like, hey, he's Tom freaking Brady. He can kind of, come and go as he pleases. So however you feel about the situation, it's going to be interesting to see how the Buccaneers do this year, and especially under new head coach Todd Bowles. I think that's going to be interesting because they're not in the AFC. They're in a lot of people talk about the AFC and how stacked it is, which it is. I'm not going to say that it's not. But the NFC has its fair counterparts as well. And I definitely think depending on how the Buccaneers do will depend on if they're in that upper echelon of the NFC. It's going to be interesting to see if Tom Brady has what we would call average year, if he stays or if, he goes out on top. I'd have to assume if he wins the Super Bowl this year, he'd have to retire. But
we thought that last year.
Yeah,
too.
We just don't think the same as Tom Brady.
And the year before that, and the year before that.
Yeah, Pat McAfee talked about it on his show yesterday. 13 years ago, Tom Brady could have, 10 years ago or so, whenever he was in his 13th season in the league, he had 4 Super Bowls. He could have retired right then and there and been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So it's like he can kind of just go on as long as he wants.
Yeah. I agree.
It's going to be very interesting to see all these teams. But I think Joe Burr, however you refer to him as, I don't pray that the Dan Marino effect falls on any quarterback, especially not him. With last year only being his second year, there's so much upside to not only Joe Burrow, but the Bengals in general.
Yeah. Well, speaking to your point, Dan Marino reached 1 Super Bowl in his entire career. Do you know what season it was?
I don't.
It was his second season.
It was his second season?
It was.
Okay.
So, listen, I'm knocking on wood for Joe Burrow because, the more we get to see of Joe Burrow, it's better for the NFL audience for sure. And Tyler, I agree. You made up a really good point. Tom Brady, it's must-see TV every time that man's on TV. And regardless of, whether he completes beyond this or whether he's, on Fox breaking down the game, Tom Brady's going to be a part of our NFL Sundays for the long foreseeable future. It just depends on if that's going to be in a uniform or not.
Yeah. I completely agree. But without any further ado, let's get into a little bit of a season preview. We did talk about the Buccaneers. They do start this season playing the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. God rest my soul. Last year, the Cowboys competed pretty well against the Buccaneers, and that was very bad for all Cowboys fans because I gave a lot of false hope. I don't know what I predict for this year. Boys, what are y'all's, other than the Rams and Bills matchup tomorrow night, what are y'all's kind of predictions or highlight game, if you will?
Well, so I'm saving my predictions for tomorrow night.
Yeah, right. So highlight game, this is the game that I'm really interested in.
So in terms of this weekend, definitely that first one. The kickoff game is always one of the better games on the NFL calendar. They do that for an obvious reason, is to try to bring you back in. But we've already touched on the Rams and the Bills for that first game. To me, it's going to be very much seeing how some of these new quarterbacks, new situations, how they look. Obviously a little biased here, but Russell Wilson coming home to Seattle on Monday night. I mean, that one's going to be. It's to say that I won't be a little emotional during that game will be an understatement. Yeah, it's going to be definitely from the first Monday night game of the year. I mean, that's something that's going to get me, right in front, ready to watch the television game this year. And I can't wait to see that one. I mean, of course, obviously, Tua Tagovailoa. I'm interested with all those weapons now. He has no more excuses. Him and Mike McDaniel now leading that offensive-led charge Miami Dolphins team. That's going to be very interesting this year. And, of course, Trey Lance taking over for the incumbent Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. I believe they take on the Chicago Bears this Sunday against another young stud in Justin Fields. We've got a lot of great quarterback play this weekend, but it's nice to also give guys in new places some nice new shine and see how they perform in their new situations.
So I think this weekend's going to be a lot for kind of the narrative aspect. Because, of course, you have Russell Wilson coming back to Seattle on Monday, but you also have the Browns traveling to Carolina to play Baker Mayfield's Panthers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You have the Chiefs traveling to Arizona, where Patrick Mahomes is going to take on his college coach in Cliff Kingsbury. And I think my most exciting matchup is the rematch of the final game of the regular season between the Raiders and Chargers, where it all went bad.
Yeah.
Those two teams, which are looking to be pretty good this year, they're going to face off once again, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the games I did have highlighted was that Raiders-Chargers game that I don't think a whole lot of people are talking about. I think that's just because a lot of people are really just focused on Thursday night for right now. But yeah, that Raiders-Chargers game is going to be electric if I had to guess. I think the Chiefs-Cardinals game is going to be really good.
Ooh, yeah.
I think that's going to be a really good game.
There's nothing more dangerous than September Kyler Murray. Let me tell you.
It's make or break for him in Kingsbury this year, I think.
And I agree
more
with
so
that.
for
That's,
Cliff, but yeah, I agree.
That's very true. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of question marks around this Chiefs team. And we're talking about not the same Chiefs team, but mostly the same Chiefs team that every headline has ever read. Chiefs team number one. They've always been predicted to be that top echelon team. And I think they have a lot of question marks around them as far as media goes. And I think that they're going to look to silence that. But it's also going to be really interesting to see how the Cardinals how they're going to go about their business with Kyler Murray officially under contract. DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be back at that time. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I definitely have that one as one of my highlighted games. It's going to be tough to decide on what I'm going to want to watch around 3:30 come Sunday.
Definitely safe for sure. I mean, I bought the NFL Sunday ticket package for the student this year, so I'm set. I got all the games. I'm ready to go.
Might have to look into that.
It's a good investment for sure. But, transitioning here, because we are going to be breaking down each of the games week by week, and I think we did a pretty good preview of going through week one and the matchups we really wanted to see. This is the beginning of the season, so we know the Fools got to break it down. Some predictions for the season long, just something to keep your eye on, just kind of see where everyone's head's at. Like I said, I will be releasing mine tomorrow on social media. Make sure you go follow us on the Twitter page at Fools on Stools. Maybe going to try to get on Instagram as well. I'll be releasing it on my personal Twitter. So make sure you follow us on social media. Get in on the conversation. I'm going to keep saying it every week. Get in on the conversation. We love to hear back from you guys and your thoughts, everything. But without any further ado, I'm going to basically just kind of pin it over to you guys. I'm going to bring up a couple of regular season awards. And then at the end, I'm going to ask for AFC, NFC championship games, Super Bowl matchup, and then Super Bowl winner. And yeah, we'll kind of wrap up the NFL segment that way. Sounds good to y'all?
Yep.
All right. First things first, we'll go Defensive Player of the Year. Who do you think, if anybody, is going to win Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL this season?
I think it's between a few different guys. I think TJ Watt is definitely up there. Aaron Donald is always in that conversation. And call me biased, I'm going to throw Micah Parsons in there just because, he came out saying last year I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be, and I've decided that I want to be the best player in the NFL. So, I think I'm going to throw him in that race. Who wins it? That's such a toss-up. Those are three really good defensive players. That's like, picking hairs at that point. But I think out of the three, I'm probably going to say I'd like to think that Micah Parsons is going to win. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay. Tyler?
Well, I got probably the same three. Those guys were far and away the best 3 defensive players last year. But I think coming off a historic season, I think TJ Watt's going to take it again because Micah Parsons is going into his sophomore season. Yeah, he's figured out who he wants to be, but some defenses or some offenses might have figured him out. We don't know yet.
Good point. It's a good point.
But we'll hope to see it. Hopefully he doesn't have a sophomore slump, but you never know in the NFL.
By the way, TJ Watt's season last year was without him playing the full season. So
Yeah,
if he were to have a
crazy.
record-breaking season this year, could be in for a monster campaign.
That'd be crazy.
Moving on now, we got to go to the offensive side of the ball for Offensive Player of the Year. This time we'll start with Tyler. Tyler, why don't you lead us into this one?
Well, I think I'm going to pick a quarterback this year.
Okay. Safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go with Josh Allen because
Okay.
I think he's going to get some MVP play, but his receiving targets this year, he's going to be looking to Stephon Diggs a lot. And that Bills team is very talented. I think he's going to lead the NFL in touchdowns. He's got a huge cannon arm. So I think I'm going to take him for the Offensive Player of the Year.
All right, Kevin.
So for my Offensive Player of the Year, I think I'm also going to go quarterback. Yeah, big surprise. I only say that because I have a little bit of a different choice for MVP. So for my Offensive Player of the Year, I'm probably going to go with. It's tough, man. Josh Allen is so good. I think if Justin Herbert can really come out and have that increase of talent, everyone around the Chargers facility has said he's come in every single day of offseason, working every day, getting better. That Chargers defense has gotten better. That Chargers team as a whole is just a lot better and well-rounded. I think Justin Herbert has a really good chance of winning Offensive Player of the Year.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, moving on now. We're going to go Coach of the Year. So breaking down who do you think might have the best edge on the sideline for his or team, respectively. Kevin, we'll start with you.
Coach of the Year. Now that's, Coach of the Year is interesting because coaches sometimes get it because they're just been there forever and win. I don't know how many Coaches of the Year
Right.
Bill Belichick has won. I think who could win Coach of the Year is a coach that goes to a program, really turns it around, and gets his team somewhere. I think Josh McDaniels could win Coach of the Year for the Raiders.
Okay, interesting. All right. Tyler, want to give your thoughts on this?
Well, jumping to the NFC, I think the Eagles coach, Nick Sirianni, the Eagles look really good this year. It is preseason, so we don't know how they're actually going to translate. But he's going to be my pick for Coach of the Year because even though that team is loaded, they kind of underperformed in the past, and I think he can unlock Jalen Hurts, and they have a good shot at winning the NFC East.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Fair enough. You guys are picking two, I wouldn't say even the highest betting ones, so I respect y'all's opinion. By the way, to answer your question, Kevin is 3-time Coach of the Year Bill Belichick.
And that's crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
If you were to go back and look at, I'm not trying to jump too far off the topic, but if you were to look at historically how long Bill Belichick has been a coach and how many successful seasons he has had, to only win Coach of the Year 3 times is kind of insane.
It's insane. Well, it's a little bit of media fatigue too. You get tired of the same guys being in every year, and you just want to spice things up.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
It is what it is. All right. We're going to do Rookie of the Year. Now, we're not going to do... You can pick offense or defense this year, so I'm not going to try to limit y'all in y'all's pick for this award, but we're going to go Tyler to start this one. Tyler, I know there's been a lot of different rookies. Obviously, Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback drafted in the first round this past season. You could go Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker. There's a lot of different options you can choose. Which one are you going with?
Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense looks phenomenal. And I think Trayvon Walker's going to have a breakout season and kind of lead their way. He's the first overall pick, so I think he's got a pretty good shot.
Okay, fair enough. Kevin?
For my offensive Rookie of the Year, personally, I think Sky Moore has a really good chance.
Okay, you're going with the Kansas City man.
Well, I said I think he has a really good chance.
Oh.
But who I think wins it, I think George Pickens could really I think George Pickens wins it.
Okay.
Because if he can earn himself wide receiver 1 spot on that Pittsburgh offense, I think he could get it. For defense, I think. I mean, it could be just recency bias with just seeing Aiden Hutchinson playing, playing on Hard Knocks and everything, and seeing him go up against that Detroit Lions offensive line. I think Aiden Hutchinson can win it. I think he just was really dominant in college, and I think he can bring that same intensity to the NFL.
Okay, fair enough. We got now the final award, probably arguably the biggest award for the NFL season. Then we'll move on to the final team predictions to close off this topic, the MVP award. Kevin, we'll start with you.
So I said earlier that I'm not going to pick a quarterback. I'm going to pick. So last year, Jonathan Taylor was really close to winning MVP. It was probably going to be the first running back to win an MVP in a while. I don't know the exact number.
Since Adrian Peterson, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a while. I think, barring any injury, Derrick Henry, there's no reason he couldn't win MVP.
Okay. I mean, we are predicting this as if every player is going to be healthy. We know that's not realistic.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, because you think about it, he got injured last year, and he still led the NFL in rushing yards by was it week 5, week 6?
Yeah.
Something. Insane.
So he got hurt first half of the year, and I think he was still top 5 through week 12, I think, or something ridiculous. So that's definitely a very good case for the MVP award. Tyler?
Well, I mean, Derrick Henry's got a lot of miles on those legs, so
okay.
I don't know about that pick. But, another person who's got a lot of miles on their leg, I think the MVP award, more than anything, is narrative-driven in all of sports. And going back to Tom Brady, he was, second, third last season?
For the MVP?
Yeah, he was in the running.
Second.
He was in the running the whole year at age 44. I think if he goes out and has another season like he did last year at age 45 and potentially being his send-off, because he did semi-retire for a bit and then come back, so the writing's definitely on the wall there. I think if he performs at that level again, they're going to give it to him because he's the best NFL player to ever walk this earth. And I think if he goes out and has a season at that age and has a great team this year, he's got a good shot.
Okay. Fair enough. Very interesting picks from the boys for the regular season awards. Now, to round out this topic for the NFL, I'm going to have you guys pick your AFC Championship 2 teams, your NFC Championship 2 teams, your Super Bowl matchup, and then obviously your Super Bowl winner. We'll start with Kevin this time so we can end on our guest, Tyler Luker.
Yep.
Kevin, why don't you break it down for us?
So for the AFC, I am going to have to say the Bills. But along with the Bills, I'm going to go with.
So the Bills will be defeating who is who you're saying?
But you said to pick your 2 AFC and 2 NFC, right?
Yeah. Well, the way you were making it sound, I thought you were picking the Bills to. Okay.
No, yeah, I wasn't picking my Super Bowl prediction. Yeah, I was trying to.
Okay, so you got the Bills on one side, and then who do you guys the other team?
I mean, there's so many teams in the AFC. I'm trying to think of who is the most stacked. So I'm probably gonna say, I think the Broncos could be something.
Okay.
But I think the more and more that I look at this Raiders team, I know everyone keeps trashing me on my Raiders take, but I think the Raiders. I'm gonna say the Raiders. I'll say the Raiders and the Bills for the AFC, and then for the NFC, I'm gonna say. It's tough.
Kevin loves to stall whenever it comes to predictions on this stuff.
I try to really think them through. I'm gonna say Rams. I mean, just because look at that team, and then I'll say the Bucs. I think the Bucs could get back to that point. Everyone's saying that Julio Jones is back to who he used to be, and if that is so, along with Mike Evans and that receiving core, yeah, that's gonna be a scary offense.
Okay, and then your Super Bowl matchup?
My Super Bowl matchup is going to be Tampa Bay and the Bills.
Tampa Bay and the Bills, and then your Super Bowl winner.
I'm gonna say the Bills.
Okay, so I'm assuming Josh Allen will be your MVP.
Yeah, it'd
Super
have
Bowl
to be.
MVP.
It'd have to be that way. Yeah.
Okay, we've got it confirmed for Mr. Kevin Walker. Tyler, if you want to take the reins here, do your AFC, NFC championship, your Super Bowl matchup, and Super Bowl winner.
So my predictions are actually very close to Kevin's. For the AFC, I have the Bills and the Chargers. And the NFC rematch of last year, the Rams and the Bucks. I think the Bills are going to take that over the Chargers. They've been there before, and I think they'll finally get over the hump and get back to the Super Bowl. And I think the Bucks are going to rebound this year and beat the Rams because last year it was so close the way that they lost. Where I differentiate from Kevin is I think the Bucks are going to beat the Bills because I'm going all in on Tom Brady this year. If Godwin can get healthy with Mike Evans and you said Julio Jones, they say he's returning back to form, that receiving core is lethal. And I think the Bills taking on Tom Brady, we've seen this movie before. If they beat the Tom Brady-led Buccaneers, it would go down in history as one of the biggest stories ever after losing year after year to him to finally beat him. But I don't think they can. I think I'm going to go all in on the Bucks, all in on Tom Brady. He's going to get sent off with an MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and a Super Bowl.
All right. And there we have it from our fill-in fool, Tyler Luker, today. He is picking the Bucks over the Bills. Kevin, the flipped Bills over Bucks. I'm assuming Brady would be your MVP, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So Brady MVP for Luker, Super Bowl MVP, that is. And then Super Bowl MVP for Kevin Walker, being Josh Allen. That is going to wrap it up for the NFL. We're going to switch gears a little bit, stay on the football field, but this time we're gonna take it to the collegiate level with some definite news that Kevin Walker, I think, wants to break down.
Yeah, we can just touch on it real quick. We're going to talk about the new expansion that's going to be coming in 2026 for the college football playoffs. If you want to hear more about it or the opinions of others, go ahead and tune into the Green Guys podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on kntu.com. The guys over there, we all talked about it. So, but Cullen, you seem to know just a lot about this and how it's all going to be worked out. So go ahead and break it down for us.
Okay, so basically in 2026, as Kevin mentioned, there is going to be a new format for the college football playoff. It's going to start now being expanded from the 4-team playoff that we know that is existing today, that is going to expand to a 12-team playoff. Now, you're wondering, how is that going to possibly work? Well, there is now going to be 4 teams that receive a first-round bye in this college football playoff in 2026. It'll still be determined by the AP poll and the coaches poll and the same voters that determine the playoff polls now. Those teams will get the first first round bye, and then also it is a matter of who makes it in. It's going to be these top 6 conference winners make the college football playoff. So however they determine that, whether it's, everybody from the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12, the SEC, the ACC, and then maybe a smaller conference also gets elevated as a champion. And then it's 6 at-large bids. So, potentially if, like in the SEC, for example, if Alabama wins their conference, Georgia, if they come in second and only have 1 loss, they have a good shot of making the playoff as well as an at-large bid. Now, with that being said, we have talked about on the show previously in previous episodes that there are some teams moving conferences. Kevin's beloved Texas Longhorns, along with the Oklahoma Sooners, are moving over to the SEC. The USC Trojans and the UCLA Bruins are moving from the Pac-12 over to the Big 10. So by the time we get to 2026, and this is a point I made on the Green Guys podcast, the conferences could be looking very different comparatively to what they look now.
Very.
So it's not necessarily, I know people are saying, oh, well, this is Power 5 and then one wannabe, lower level division or lower 5 conference winning it. There may not be a Power 5 in 2026 because we'll see what's left of the Big 12 and the Pac-12 if they're going to potentially merge together and maybe try to form like a little super conference of their own. Maybe other teams such as like Oregon and Washington, I know have been rumored to be on the move. Maybe teams in the ACC will be on the look to move as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see. What are your initial thoughts after hearing this college football playoff news?
I think it's really exciting to finally get another team kind of elevated to that P5 level, I guess, if you will, because all that we've all ever talked about is P5 schools. Well, now we're gonna basically have a P6 where we have another conference that's probably not going to be as good as some of the teams in the top 5, but is going to have the chance to compete and get that spotlight and that revenue. And for schools like we go to UNT. For schools like UNT, not saying that I don't even know what the possibility of us finding us in that situation, but for schools like that don't have as much funding as an Alabama, a Georgia, a Texas, or whatever, it gives them more spotlight, more ESPN, more access, and more TV time and everything like that. I think it's really good.
Yeah, Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Well, and everybody loves when March comes around and we have March Madness. It's some of the best times for year for collegiate athletics because there's so many upsets and stuff. Whenever you expand football, which gets even more viewership than basketball, and make it into that sort of thing, the upsets are going to be exciting. Everything's going to be a lot more fun to watch and more accessible, like Kevin was saying, especially with more conferences getting that spotlight. But I think it's expanding it in general is just going to do nothing but good for the game.
Yeah, to kind of put more emphasis on your point, I'm a big fan of games that matter, and these make more bowl games matter. I understand, for morale, like a team such as UNT, we fought and clawed our way to, be able to qualify for a bowl game, to say that, we were bowl eligible, and then we got to play in a bowl game that they literally had to create on the spot for us, in which we, unfortunately lost to Miami of Ohio. But this now gives more teams more exposure. It widens the playoff field, so there's more entertainment, and there's more teams that are potentially involved for college football fans. It allows, recruitment bases to not sit there and be like, oh, if I want to, make sure I'm playing in January for this college football playoff, I don't have to go to the same 4 schools, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, LSU, Oklahoma, whomever. There's more chance to go somewhere else and still be playoff eligible. So I think it's great for the sport. I can't wait for it to come here in 2026. By then we'll all be graduated, so it's going to be very interesting to see how it looks like. But yeah, knock on wood, Tyler, right? But yeah, I think it's great for the sport. I'm so excited for it, and yeah, I can't wait. This was one of the bigger announcements that could have happened, and I'm so glad that college football is going in this direction.
It kind of came out of the blue, to be honest.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of almost like a.
By the way, there's going to be 12 teams in 2026.
It wasn't quite a news dump, but it definitely kind of floated under the radar in terms of how it just kind of sprouted up. But
yeah,
I mean, shout out to all the great college football reporters who were able to get this job done. But with that being said, we do got to break down the football that's happening now. We can't worry about 2026.
We got to focus on right now.
So we are going to talk quickly about week 1, just kind of our big thoughts about what happened this past week in college football. And then we'll quickly break down week 2 before we move on to baseball. So my biggest thing or question to y'all is, for week 1, what was y'all's biggest takeaways in the world of college football? Well, Tyler, we'll start with you.
Man, Georgia looks good. That was my number one takeaway.
Yeah.
Just the way they stomped Oregon, it was scary, and you can see that there's going to be 2 Alabamas in one conference, because Georgia's at that level where every single year, no matter the player losses, they're back every single year. The talent level that's spewing out of Athens, Georgia is unreal. For them to go beat a Pac-12 team like that was previously touted as a sleeper pick and might have been pretty good this year. For them to do that, it really established themselves.
Yeah, I like it. Kevin, what was your biggest takeaway?
Obviously, Georgia, it's hard not to. Whenever I talked about Georgia and Oregon playing each other, dude, I'm doing 2 different podcasts. I don't remember what I did. I think it was on Fools on Stools. So I said that it was going to be a close matchup. Yes,
it was on this one.
Yeah,
Yes.
I said it was going to be a close matchup, and that we were going to learn a lot about Oregon, or we're going to learn about the dominance of Georgia. Well, we learned about the latter. Georgia is still dominant. Even after all those players leaving to the NFL, they're still dominant. They're still here to stay. And kind of like Tyler said, there's 2 Alabamas in the SEC right now.
Yeah.
So we're almost all but for certain going to get another Alabama-Georgia rematch.
Well, I think Ohio State might have something to say about that. They were able to defeat Notre Dame ultimately in an 11-point game. They weren't able to cover the spread.
Yeah.
But I do think Georgia is no one to be messed with. That's for damn sure.
And I do want to ask you a question.
Okay.
So the number one game that I think a lot of people were really highlighting for competition-wise is Ohio State.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So Ohio State won that game 21-10.
Yes.
Some cases that be a blowout, some cases that wouldn't be.
Right.
What's your takeaway from that?
I was expecting a little bit more from C.J. Stroud. Obviously, their number one wide receiver might be the number one wide receiver in this next upcoming draft class, Smith Higbia. I apologize if I butchered that name, but the offense overall just didn't look like it clicked in week one. Now it is week one for them, so they will have time to chance to get into a groove, and I do expect C.J. Stroud to improve over the season. But I was a little impressed by Marcus Freeman. He was the defensive-minded now head coach over at Notre Dame, taking over for Brian Kelly, who's now at LSU, which, by the way, that was...
We'll touch on that here.
Yeah, in a minute. But I was impressed because they came in with a quarterback who was really green, hadn't really gotten a lot of reps, and they were able to stand toe-to-toe with Ohio State. I really thought Ohio State was kind of going to mop the floor with them, and their offense just kind of came out flat. Didn't look like they were going to communicate as well, and obviously they did come out a little bit banged up. I think Stroud will clean it up. I think Ryan Day is still one of the better offensive minds in the country, and I do look forward to them to bounce back throughout the season. I still think they're going to win the Big Ten, be a championship contender, but I have no problem with them dropping in the rankings to have Georgia at number 2. Georgia looked like the better team, let's be honest, even if it was against just Oregon. My biggest takeaway, though, Anthony Richardson. Oh, my goodness. The University of Florida quarterback.
That was crazy.
They were previously unranked before this past week. They are now 12th. They did jump ahead of Utah, who they previously beated. I had talked about on last week's podcast how Utah was going to be potentially one of my sleeper picks for a Final Four playoff. That got blown out the water very quickly. And Anthony Richardson was a big part of that. He is big. He is strong. He can throw the ball all over the field. He is very mobile. He's not afraid to run it. And I think he just became not only on the college football landscape, but he just might have raised some NFL eyebrows as well. Like this kid, I would not be surprised if he's playing on Sunday based on his past performance this weekend.
Yeah, no kidding. So Anthony Richardson, 17 of 24, 168. Somebody's probably going to say, well, that's not that much. Well, that's not taking into account that he rushed 11 times for 106 yards and 3 freaking touchdowns.
Yeah, he was definitely.
Including that.
Yeah.
I can't preface this enough. Filthy spin move fake throw that I have never seen before.
Yeah. I mean, it was very like NFL. That's an NFL throw right there. That is an NFL caliber Sunday throw from Anthony Richardson. And I had heard the hype, but I was like, I'm not sure. I mean, it's Florida. It's like they haven't really been really competitive in terms of like the SEC in quite some time now. This kid's gonna make some SEC defensive coordinators sweat, and rightfully so.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch Florida. And I don't think your Utah take is completely out the water. I think that they still have some time. They are still ranked number 13th, just behind Florida. Mm-hmm. But keeping it in the state of Florida,
okay,
as you mentioned earlier, that LSU Florida State game. I think that's a game that not a lot of people really had marked on their calendars and didn't really tune into until about halftime or so. Because I remember I told my dad, he was like, "Is there college football today?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "It's Sunday." I was like, "Well," I said, "There's LSU Florida State," and he's like, "Oh, that's gonna be a blowout." And I said,
"Chances are, if your dad asks and he just says, 'Hey, is there football on today?' just say yes, and most of the time you're gonna be right."
That is true. That is very true.
Borderline being it like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, there is football on. So
I think we'll reach a time eventually where just some kind of football is going to be on every single day. But anyway, talking about this game, where do we even start? Do y'all think? Now, I don't want to jump on the hype train. I don't want to get out early and make myself look like an idiot. Jordan Travis, the quarterback for Florida State. I mean, he kind of looked like he was a guy out there.
Yeah, Florida State had really been somewhat of an afterthought after the Jameis Winston era. I think Dalvin Cook was on that team, Kelvin Benjamin, when they won it all back in, I want to say it was like the mid-2010s. I want to say 2015. But Florida State finally seems like they have their act together. They've had a lot of issues with transfers, players kind of getting into trouble and everything. And this was a huge win for this program. I know LSU's been kind of on the downswing ever since, they're coaching their magical championship year as well. Brian Kelly needs to really kind of buckle down here because that was a very sloppy game from LSU in general. I'm not taking anything away from Florida State because they played ultimately a really great game and they were able to come out with the win. But to me, this was more about LSU losing it than it was about Florida State winning it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tyler, what are your thoughts about the game?
The game was very shocking because LSU was projected to beat Florida State, and Florida State's now 2-0 with not that difficult of a schedule coming up. I mean, they have Wake Forest, they have Clemson, they have Miami, and then, of course, Florida in the final week, and NC State. But LSU, Brian Kelly, I think it's a little too early to give up on him. Like that reporter who said, like, if you won, I'll be here on time.
I'm glad you brought that up.
That's so tough.
I kind of disagree with that. I think that, it's his first game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure. You are facing a program that in the past 10 years has been very successful. They can rebuild that pretty instantly. So I think it's unfair to jump the gun on him right now.
I'm so glad you brought that up because we love whenever we're talking on here to kind of hold, whether it's coaches, players, athletes, whomever accountable. That reporter was out of line.
Correct.
Showed up late, called out Brian Kelly in an unprofessional manner. We are hopeful media members in the future. Us talking on the podcast right now. That was egregious of a question. Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, one of the more harder academic Division I programs in the nation, was consistently getting double-digit win seasons with, you're trying to recruit kids to play in cold weather when it gets to October.
In Indiana.
And with that academic, standard that Notre Dame has, it's not easy. Like, I understand Brian Kelly, a lot of people were making fun of him with, like, the videos he was doing and, like, the accent he was doing with LSU. And don't get me wrong, he deserves some criticism for how he handled that game, and I believe he'll right the ship. But that reporter was way out of line in terms of how he handled that press conference.
I'll even go a step further and just say that it was kind of fainted, so I didn't know if it was a male or a female. But to call out, just straight up call out the coach takes some courage, I guess. I'll stick with that word. But because I couldn't ever picture myself walking up into a press conference, late, and be like, hey, that's your fault.
Yeah.
It's your fault that I'm late.
Yeah, just a little narcissistic.
A little bit.
Just and unprofessional, too.
Yeah. That's... Don't get me wrong, as media members, like, it's okay to be critical of a coach and ask the tough questions, and there's a certain way to do it. But, when you're walking in late like that, and then you just immediately turn and fire it back at the, head coach, at probably, like, the main guy that you're going to want to interview throughout this entire season, it's just not smart. Like, it just really isn't smart. You guys both work for newspaper companies, and I know you wouldn't do that ever. I know you both.
No.
I know your characters and everything.
Mm-mm.
You wouldn't go up to the head coach of this university and just, call him out like that, especially if you were late.
It's just hard. It's even hard, in my opinion, to just get a sentence out in general, much less fire at the coach of the team that you're potentially covering. But even more than that, I think you're right. I think Brian Kelly ultimately is going to get everything pulled together. I think he can make LSU a worthy team of at least watching. But I'm interested to see what Florida State's going to do. I know you said that they have a pretty easy schedule, Tyler, but I think that Clemson game is going to really kind of show us what Florida State's about. I know Clemson's kind of on like a comeback year of a sort. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I think that game is going to be a really good game. But to end off college football week 1, this was definitely a crazy game.
Yeah, for sure. But we got to take it over to week 2 because, Kevin, I know there's a game that you've been dying to talk about. I know we're going to kind of end the subject there, so I don't want to jump the gun too quickly on talking about that game. So because we'll wrap it up. Tyler, outside of Kevin's game that we know he's going to mention, what is your big week 2 game that you're going to be looking forward to watching this weekend?
Kevin's game is the big one.
It is the big one. It is.
With ranked matchups, there's not many this week, but we do have Tennessee and Pittsburgh facing off in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So that should be interesting to see how good Pitt's going to be without Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
BYU
Baylor, 9 versus 21 should be a good one.
Yeah, I agree, especially with BYU getting close to stepping into the Big 12.
Yep.
It's going to be kind of a litmus test to see how they will be in that conference.
Similar how to, and again, not trying to broach podcast here, but we talked about it on the Green Guys, UNC versus SMU, and hopefully it goes better for BYU than it did the Mean Green.
I agree. Yeah,
definitely so. But Kevin, I think the world wants to know.
Okay, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. But I also, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you say that Tennessee-Pittsburgh game?
Yes, he did.
Okay, yeah, I think that's going to be a really good one. I think another game that doesn't necessarily have a lot of competition to it, but I think a game that's really going to kind of be not necessarily interesting to watch, but kind of just keep tabs on is that Ohio State-Arkansas State game. I say this because Ohio State beat Notre Dame 21-10. As you obviously just previously mentioned, Cullen, that you kind of expected C.J. Stroud in that Ohio State offense to do a little bit more. So are we going to see Ohio State, who's ranked number 3 right now in AP poll, go against Arkansas State, who's not ranked at all? Are we going to see them go in and blow that team out, or are we going to see another struggling performance?
Oh, if I know anything about C.J. Stroud and Ryan Day and that Ohio State program, I would expect a 40-50 burger this week. So that's what I'm definitely looking for. That's what I expect. I picked C.J. Stroud to win the Heisman going into the season. I'm expecting a Heisman-like performance from C.J. Stroud this week. But, of course, I know we've been delaying it, but the University of Alabama taking on Kevin's Texas Longhorns. Kevin, go in, brother.
Okay. So my first complaint that I want to throw out about this, by the way, Cullen did make that, so good job, Cullen.
Appreciate it.
Why is this 11 o'clock in the afternoon or in the morning? Really?
It's got you thrown for a loop here. You don't even know. It should be like a mid-afternoon night game.
Didn't Saban come out and say like, "Hey, like, what the heck, man? Like, we don't ever play at 11 o'clock in the morning."
This is an interesting choice for the college football committee. It is what it is.
I mean, College Game Day is there,
right?
So it's getting the spotlight, like it's going to get, but
right.
I think I'm trying so hard to be optimistic, man. I really am. I swear to God, I'm trying to be so optimistic, but it is Alabama, man. It's Alabama. And Nick Saban.
Just say it.
Nick Saban.
We want Bama.
Shut
up. Bum.
Nick Saban came out last year and said that last year was a rebuild year after making it to the finals. So if that's a rebuild year, I don't know what I guess I do know what a successful year looks like for Alabama because it's winning an Natty. I think I would love to see Texas at least compete. Quinn Ewers did not have that great of a game for Texas last week. They did win. They poured it on to Louisiana Monroe as they should, but Quinn Ewers didn't do as expected, in my opinion. That defense was good and that special teams was good, but that's stuff that you do against lower level schools. You're not going to be able to do that against higher echelon schools like Alabama, Georgia, you name it. Texas is really going to have to put their offense out there, and they're really going to have to put their defense out there. One thing the Big 12 has struggled with a long time, and I've said this before, even with Oklahoma, is defense. Every time Texas and Oklahoma plays, it's high score game because nobody can play. Nobody has really good defensive players. Obviously, Oklahoma probably is going to be a little different this year with Brett Venables taking over, but Texas has got to have a defense if they want to even stand a chance against teams like Alabama. I can't even predict anything. I hope that Texas can at least put up a fight. I don't want to get 50 bombed. I don't want to lose by. If we could lose by 10 points, I'd be happy.
I mean, I didn't want to be born 5'7", but here we are. I mean, Texas, there's a very good chance that they give up 50 to Alabama.
Face the facts.
If we give up 50 to Alabama, but we score 40, then I'm happy with it, I guess.
Okay. Tyler, do you want to add anything?
Yes. So this game, it's another one full of narratives because the last time they faced off was that big national championship. Since then, both schools have gone in completely inverse directions.
That was
Alabama.
the Colt McCoy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes.
That's the Colt McCoy where he got
Yes.
injured early.
Mhm,
Sorry,
mhm.
just to clarify.
So
Thank you for
Alabama
that.
became the best team in college football. Texas flew to rock bottom.
I don't
Um,
mean, it's
They
a little harsh. Rock
Really?
bottom is a little
Right.
harsh.
I mean, for Texas standards,
I mean,
We're at least
under 500,
We're at least
yes.
middle best in the Big 12.
they
Okay.
didn't qualify for bowl games some years.
for the
Losing to
level of
Kansas.
the level of recruits that y'all had, I mean, that's pretty low for Texas.
So
It's a coaching struggle.
I think they will get 50 bombed. I mean, Quinn Ewers, yeah, he looked okay. His biggest play was getting his car back after he got towed.
That's hilarious. I don't care who you are. That's funny.
But it's gonna be 11 o'clock game. The sun's gonna be shining bright. But Texas fans, you better wear black because you're going to a funeral.
That's fair.
It's gonna be hot, but it just has to be done because Alabama is gonna beat the crap out of the Longhorns.
That's fair. I really, because I mean, I am a Texas fan at heart. Have been forever. And I follow, Barstool Longhorn. I follow a few different Longhorns accounts, and I see them going out and trashing Alabama, and I'm just like, I really wish you would not do that because the fire back is going to be.
It's just bulletin board material, man.
Texas fans can be so toxic. It's actually so bad. That's why I try to limit my Texas fandom, even if y'all don't think I do. Trust me, Texas fans can be very toxic. I don't know, man. I hope we see something competitive. I hope I don't have to turn it off by halftime.
Kevin,
if
I
that makes any
got
sense.
one question for you. Is Texas back? We're back.
I think I saw a tweet yesterday.
Shout out Sam Ellinger for making
Yeah.
the Colts roster, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what? If Matt Ryan goes down, bearing the worst, knock on wood, but if anything happens to Matt Ryan, I would love to see Sam Ellinger actually get a shot. He's had nothing but unfortunate circumstances happen since he's gotten to the NFL. But I'm happy that he got that backup spot, and I really think that he could be something in the NFL. But that's besides the point. Y'all are trying to make me depressed, so that's fine.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking
I'm
about?
just trying to ask if they're back.
I mean, we're just asking general questions here. You're being the Texas Longhorn expert, of course.
I think I saw a tweet the other day that of course, mimicking Texas, says we're mid. So that's awesome.
Do you want to maybe switch topics?
Yeah, that'd be great. I
Okay.
think we have a lot of other things that we can get to.
Okay. Well, and
This is really-
I think we've beat down on Kevin a little too much today, so we'll give him some love here. Tyler, take it over to the diamond. School us on some baseball knowledge. Break down these division races coming towards the end of the season.
And how's the Seattle Mariners going to make it to the playoffs?
Please don't bring that up.
Oh yes, please bring it up. First thing, that's the first thing I want to talk about.
I mean, they got a pretty good shot. But we'll start off with the divisions. Starting in the American League, the Yankees are leading the Tampa Bay Rays by 4.5 and Toronto's 6 back. They have really collapsed. I mean, the first half, we were looking at one of the best teams ever, we thought. And then they have, 11 wins since the first day of August. And we're sitting here September 7th. That's really bad. I mean, they had a 10, 12 game lead, 4.5. That's not going to be enough against a team that's been a repeat playoff contender with the Rays. But I think the Yankees will get it together. I mean, losing Jordan Montgomery for a guy who hasn't even touched the field yet was pretty concerning. But I think they're going to finish out that division and end up winning it because Aaron Judge is putting the team on his back, and they're just going to let him ride. But the Central, the Guardians are leading it. They have 1.5 on the Twins and 3 on the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox have been pretty disappointing this entire season, so I think they're just going to miss the playoffs altogether. But I think the Twins are going to win that division. They've been better in their last 10 games, while Cleveland's been on the other side. And I think they just have more talent than the Guardians. But that division isn't that great. I mean, it's not much to talk about because neither of those teams are going to be a World Series contender for me. The Astros have 10 on the Mariners and 27 on the Angels. They're going to win that division just like the other team in the West is going to do. I mean, they're the runaway favorite for the American League, and I think they're going to take that number 1 seed, especially because of how the Yankees have fallen. And I think the most interesting division, jumping over to the senior circuit, is the NL East. 10 games ahead. That's how how ahead the Mets were at the Braves at one point. When one of the Mets reporters said, "It's over, pack it up, the NL East is done." The Braves have shown why they are the world champions. They have gone on a blistering pace to catch up to the Mets, and here they are today, standing tied for first place. Yes, the Mets have the tiebreaker at the moment, but that can change. The Mets have lost 3 in a row, while the Braves have won 6 in a row. The Braves are looking like that team, which at the beginning of the year, I predicted they'd win the division because who wouldn't? They look fantastic. They have the 2 top Rookie of the Year candidates that are fighting each other, and they're on the same team. There's no way they don't win this division, I think. The NL Central, it was a race for the longest time between the Cardinals and the Brewers, but the Brewers have been losing a lot of games lately while the Cardinals have been turning it up. So the Cardinals are ahead 8.5 games. That's pretty much over with like 28, 29 games left, depending on which team. It's going to be really tough for Milwaukee to even make the playoffs after how they've played this last month. And then the division that's most wrapped up, of course, my Dodgers. They have 19 games on the Padres. Their magic number sits at 7 with 28 games to play. They're going to wrap that division up pretty easily. They eliminated the San Francisco Giants last night, and they should be locking up the number 1 seed in all of baseball, barring a collapse, because they do have 93 wins, while the Astros, who have the second best record in baseball, have 87. But on a more interesting note, the wild card races. These are going to be competitive down the stretch. Right now in the American League, the three leaders are Tampa Bay and Seattle, which each have plus 1.5 games, and then the last wild card spot is the Blue Jays at the moment. And the teams after that really have a shot at even getting that wild card still. Baltimore's 3.5 back, the Twins are 6 back, and the White Sox are 7.5. Do I think the White Sox will make it? No, I think their time's passed. But I think the Twins and Orioles both have a shot if the other teams have a good collapse. But personally, I think the Rays, Mariners, and Jays will finish in playoff spots for the wild card, and I think the Twins will get in on their division because it's not been great this year. Yes, Baltimore's been great, but they're a really young team. I think they're going to be kept out just like the Seattle Mariners did last year. They're going to win a lot of games, turn a lot of heads, but ultimately not be able to finish it off. And then going to the NL again, the Mets and the Braves are tied technically for the division and the top of the wild card. But with the wild card, they have 10.5. It's no secret. They're both going to make it to the playoffs one way or another, depending on if they're the number 2 seed or number 4 seed. I mean, one's going to win the division. The other one's going to get the number 1 seed as a wild card. But after them, the Phillies and the Padres are currently tied for the second/third spot, with the Brewers sitting 3 back and the Giants 8.5 back. The Giants are pretty much done. They've looked pretty rough this past month. And I think the Brewers still have a shot at making the playoffs. In fact, I think they're going to etch out the Padres because the Padres have 6 games left against the Dodgers, which they have fared terribly the last 2 years against them. Ever since that one game in April where they had the parade and everything, they've been pretty terrible against them, and they have to face them off 6 more times. So I think Milwaukee's going to squeak their way in because they've played bad this entire month, and yet they're only 3 games out of the wild card. But I think the Mets are going to take that number 1 wild card spot with the Phillies and Brewers filling that out, and the Padres are going to just miss the playoffs, really.
All right. That was a very well done breakdown by our baseball and fill-in fool today, Mr. Tyler Luker. Got a couple questions here for you before we get over to the award races. So you have been talking about the Atlanta Braves catching the Mets for a long time. I think me and you have actually gone head-to-head on this topic before. And I just want to reiterate your point of why you're so confident in the Braves over the Mets. Again, I understand they're the defending World Series champions. I had them, I think it was second in my power rankings to begin the year. Is there any chance that you see the Mets being able to hold off this Braves team, or do you really think it's a wraps in terms of Atlanta taking that division?
Well, they do have a shot. I mean, Max Scherzer did go to the IL earlier this week. He's going to be down for a couple weeks. So that's really going to hurt their chances. But they have looked good relatively all season. In fact, I make preseason picks every single year. And the past 4 years, I've said the Mets are going to win that division. And I chose this year with the Braves because I didn't want to pick them again because they failed me year after year. They're known for this September collapse, really, and they're doing it again. But if they can get healthy, they can do it because right now they have the best 1-2 punch in baseball with Max Scherzer and DeGrom. Health is an issue with both of those guys nowadays. But they do have a fantastic bullpen. They're great 1 through 9. I mean, there's barely any weaknesses in that lineup. Because even guys that can't hit, like Brandon Nimmo, he's out there robbing home runs every single night. So I think they're talented enough, but I think Atlanta's just better. They're younger, they're closer together because that team was developed from the ground, while the Mets team was kind of bought through trade and free agency. And that's not really a bad way to play baseball. It's just those guys in Atlanta, they grew up together. They've been playing since single A ball, and they just look like a more coherent team. They lost Freddie Freeman, and Freddie Freeman's been fantastic this year. They replaced him with Matt Olson, who's not been as good, but still great as advertised. And that whole team, they're getting signed to these long contracts to avoid all the arbitration talks. Their GM is a genius, Alex Anthopoulos. I think there's no shot they lose this division, just because they are such a coherent team.
That almost sounds like the plot of a baseball movie. It's like this, team that buys everybody, as the expected favorite gets out to the big lead, and then the guys that band together, the ones that have teamwork and cohesion and chemistry, rise up and end up winning it all in the end. So very interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to be a Moneyball 2.0. We all know how that finished out. Even though the plots are similar, the Braves have money. That's the difference between these new age big market teams. They're thinking like Moneyball, but they have the resources of the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox. That's what's making these teams so successful.
Fair enough. Kevin, you want to ask anything in terms of the division races or wild card for Tyler?
Yeah, why have the Yankees sucked?
Why?
Yeah.
They've had health issues. I mean, Matt Carpenter's not a guy you think of being like that big guy, but since losing him, they've been pretty bad. But I want to talk about the Joey Gallo curse. Baseball is a game of curses.
It's very true.
Billy Goat, you name it, with the Red Sox, the Babe Ruth curse. But ever since they traded Joey Gallo, who is terrible with the Yankees, I mean, bottom 5 hitter in baseball, ever since they traded him, they have been horrible, while the Dodgers have been great. It's like they took a complete switch into how they've been playing baseball. I mean, the Yankees this last month have been a bottom 5 team. They're not healthy. They traded away their number 3 starter for a guy who hasn't even touched the field. I don't get how they're running the team. I don't think Aaron Boone's doing a great enough job, because when you have guys like DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton as your 1 through 3, you should be leading that division by 10 games. You should not be blowing it down the stretch. I mean, Aaron Judge is going to be paid so much money this offseason. I mean, he's getting close to breaking Maris's AL record, and they still can't win games without him. And that's really disappointing. I don't like the Yankees personally, but it hurts whenever you see such good talent and they can't win. It reminds me of the Angels, just blowing it year after year. But this time, the Yankees, they looked really good. They were the best team at the break, and now they just sailed.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's passed them up. I mean, I've seen some power rankings. They're having them at the 8th best team in baseball, and that's not even unrealistic because they've been playing terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Now, you mentioned that, the Yankees seems like they can't win without Aaron Judge. Is he your pick for AL MVP if the season ended today?
100%. I mean, it's him and Shohei, but the thing is, whether you use F WAR or B WAR, Aaron Judge is that paramount. I mean, a guy, he's at 54 home runs at the moment. Yeah, Shohei's been phenomenal per usual, but I think Aaron Judge has no shot at losing this. He's in the biggest market. He's been the best hitter in baseball. His WAR is sky high. I mean, he's far and away the best candidate for MVP. If there was a MVP for all of baseball instead of just 2 leagues, he'd have it pretty easily.
Fair enough. Do you want to break down any other awards you want to talk about?
Sure. So I think the NL MVP is going to be Paul Goldschmidt. He's been a guy who's flirted with it the last 10 years, really. Like, he's been like Joey Votto. It's like, oh, he's top 3, but he's never the guy. But this year, I mean, he's almost getting Triple Crown status. I mean, he's leading baseball on average. I think in the NL he's second in home runs. I think he's like 2 away from Schwarber, and then with RBIs he's leading it. I don't think he'll get the Triple Crown because I think Schwarber's going to hit more home runs than him, and Pete Alonso might pass him in RBIs. But I think he's going to be the MVP of the NL, just because of how he's been this whole season. And then, of course, Aaron Judge. I think the Cy Young is pretty interesting as well, for at least the NL. It's Sandy Alcantara's award to lose, just because of how dominant he's been. The guy who's probably second, I mean, it's kind of tough because Tony Gonsolin was that guy, but he's been out this last couple weeks. And he doesn't have a shot at catching him because he goes 5 innings on average while Sandy goes 7. So I think the Cy Young for the NL is about locked up. The Rookie of the Year has been very interesting in the AL. Not so much the NL because we all know it's between those two guys. But in the AL, you have Julio Rodriguez and you have Adley Rutschman. Now, Julio has been the favorite the whole season, and he was actually my preseason pick for AL Rookie of the Year. But Adley Rutschman, his odds are like plus 500. They should be less than that because he has been amazing. He should be talked about more. It should not be a unanimous vote. I think J-Rod's still going to get it because he's got 30 games on Adley. But Adley Rutschman is looking like the prospect we all expected. The switch hitting catcher with plus arm, plus fielding. Every at-bat he's taking, it's like he's a veteran. So I don't think he'll win it. I think J-Rod's going to finish it out. But he's turning some heads, Adley Rutschman. And Baltimore as a whole, they're building something really special this season.
Yeah.
But that's it for awards. I mean, the other ones, I don't think they're as interesting as the AL Rookie of the Year, the NL Cy Young, or the MVP races.
You want to ask him a question, Kevin, or you want me to?
No, you can ask him a question. I mean, I was going to ask him about Baltimore Orioles, but he kind of touched on it. I mean, I've been kind of riding high on them all year, but I think when it's finally kind of getting closer and closer to the playoff races, to the month of October, so we're actually kind of like we might actually see the Baltimore Orioles play in the playoffs, and it's kind of crazy.
It is, absolutely, especially with how rough they started the year, and that win streak was obviously very huge for them, and they've just been able to carry the momentum. My question to you is if, because the season ends, I'm not sure the exact date, but it's either late September, early October.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to ask you, in your opinion, which award you would think is the most likely to change between now and that date, which one would you have to say it is?
Man, that's kind of tough.
I know, I'll put you on the spot there, but...
Well, I think the AL Cy Young, because it's kind of up for grabs, because you have Verlander, but then he gets hurt, and he's been leading it the whole year. And then you have Dylan Cease, who has been turning in start after start after start, where he's so dominant that he might have a shot to overtake him and overtake that narrative just because Verlander's been out for a long time. So I think that one's got a pretty good argument. And then, I don't know, maybe the NL MVP, because I think there's a couple guys in baseball that could pass Paul Goldschmidt if he does in September. I don't anticipate it happening, but you got his teammate Nolan Arenado, who's probably a top 5 MVP candidate this year. He's been money. And then you have the three-headed monster out in LA with Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, and Freddie Freeman. I think those guys have all have good shots. Mookie probably having the best shot, having the most home runs in a season in his career. But I think it's going to stay with Goldschmidt. But I think Cease has a good shot at overtaking Verlander.
Thank you very much, Tyler Luker, for all your breakdown on the baseball world. If you want to follow him on social media, he is on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. But to wrap up this baseball segment, it wouldn't be a baseball topic with Tyler Luker without Luker's Lock. Tyler, why don't you close us out, my friend?
Well, the past 2 locks haven't been very successful.
Easy to break, I'll say.
Yeah. But this one, I feel more confident in. I think I'll give you two locks.
Ooh, a double special.
Mm-hmm.
Make up for it.
So I think Aaron Judge is winning the MVP. That's a pretty safe pick. And then I'll go with the Braves. You know what? I think they're going to be my lock for the NL because I think the Dodgers are going to be that number 1 seed, but I think the Braves are going to lock up that division and show that they're the superior team that plays on the coast. So yeah, the Braves winning the division and Aaron Judge winning MVP. 2-for-1 special.
Do you want to take you don't have to lock it in, but do you want to take a guess on how many home runs Aaron Judge might end with?
I think he's going to break it. 62.
Okay. Oh, I think he's going to break it.
Because he's on pace hitting a home run pretty much every game at this point, this last month. It might be tough, but playing in that short porch, I think he's got a good shot, especially because the Yankees are going to need him down the stretch, and he is notably a clutch player. So I think he's got a really good chance at breaking it because I think there's 28 games. He's 7 away from tying it. I think he's got this in the bag. And Pujols is another interesting one. He's at, 695? I really want him to break it, but
yeah,
it's going to be tough unless they play him every day. But the thing is, he's terrible against right-handed pitching, so I don't think they'll play him every day. So I think he's going to fall short.
Okay, so
That's gonna suck, man.
we got a little extra dose of Luker's lock today. Definitely always bringing the baseball knowledge, and we appreciate his contribution as always. But we are going to switch gears over to the track now. Talk a little bit of Formula One, as me and Kevin like to do. Zandvoort, it's been pretty much a season that has a race, that summed up the season with Max Verstappen ultimately winning for Red Bull. Looked like Mercedes could have been on the pace, but they just ultimately came up and fell up short. Interesting pit stop strategies for all teams involved, with George Russell coming in second, Charles Leclerc finishing P3. Kevin, what were your thoughts on the race?
Max Verstappen won again, and he's probably not going to stop winning. I know we talked about this off air a few days ago, but I think it was before the race, actually, but Max Verstappen is in his prime, and there's a good chance that his prime could be better than any driver's prime ever.
Yeah.
Cullen, how many wins is he away from?
From what, Vettel's record?
Yes.
So I believe he's in the double digits now. Vettel had, it was 13 races that Vettel won back in, I think it was actually 2013, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
But, Verstappen's at 10, so with him having the fastest car, I want to say he's 3 away from tying it. I'll double check, but I think he's 3 away from tying it and 1 away from the record. So let me just double check that real quick. But yeah, he's on a roll right now, man.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any slowdown, literally any slowdown to that at all. I think every team is just kind of trying to fend for themselves, trying to see what they can come out with for the rest of the year. It kind of feels like, and Cullen, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is really my first season, really watching Formula One.
Right.
I kind of expected expectations and intensity to flare up coming out of the summer break.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like things are just like, okay, yeah, Red Bull's gonna win. Let's move on to next year.
Okay, so to wrap it up earlier, I was correct. He is on 10 wins. The record was 13, set back in 13 by Sebastian Vettel, so he needs 3 to tie, 4 to break it. He obviously now has, I believe, 7 races left to complete that, but, I mean, the way he's driving, it's a very realistic possibility that he'll break the record. But to get back onto the subject, summer break is a time where teams have an option of really kind of going for it, or if they're kind of just throwing in the tank. It seems like with whatever Ferrari,
Poor Ferrari.
yeah, they just seem like they were more or less trying to focus on strategy and trying to focus on not making so many in-race mistakes. And I mean, Carlos Sainz, I mean, come on, man. How do you not remember that a car has 4 wheels and only bring 3 tires to change in this pit stop? One of the longest pit stops, if not the longest pit stop of the season.
It's almost 13 seconds.
Yeah, and Red Bull's just a well-oiled machine. I mean, they had a couple of DNFs to start out the beginning of the year, but ever since then, they have just been on fire, consistent, constantly at the front of the field, and Max has delivered. And he's cashed in on pretty much every opportunity that he's got a decent car, and I would expect that to continue. Mercedes, it seems like there's just going to be certain tracks that Mercedes seems to be more competitive than others. Obviously, in Spa, they look like they were not quite on the pace compared to Ferrari and Red Bull, but I think Red Bull just overall is the more complete car, and we're going to just see them just kind of just more pull away and look to try to claim not only the Drivers' Championship, but the Constructors as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we already kind of touched on Ferrari, but did you also see that their bus broke down on their way to Monza? Yeah,
I think it's actually a good transitional point because, we do have Monza this week, one of the more historic tracks on the Formula One calendar. It's going to be very interesting to see how Ferrari in front of their home faithful, in front of the Tifosi, as they like to call themselves. They're going to be for a world of just disappointment if you're a Ferrari fan, because I don't see any way that Ferrari can compete with Red Bull this weekend. And Mercedes has got a good chance of potentially even keeping them off the podium now that they've seemed to kind of get their act together. They're rocking a new livery this week. It's going to be a nice featured yellow, tribute to obviously the Ferrari logo as well. But yeah, I wouldn't expect Ferrari to have any chance, barring something unfortunate happening, for them to compete this weekend.
Yeah, I kind of in that same boat with you. Now, something that you know more about is this news that's been going on in Formula One.
Yes. So the last time an American driver was competing in F1 was in 2015. It was an Alexander Rossi. He started 5 races in 2015 for a now defunct Formula One team known as Marussia, and didn't even score points that entire season. Colton Herta is a candidate for an F1 season for AlphaTauri. The Red Bull boss, Helmut Marko, was confirming that if he is able to get everything cleared away with his license, he will be able to race for Formula One and AlphaTauri next year. Basically, the way it works is there's a super license point system that you have to get a certain amount of points before you're allowed to qualify for Formula One, competing in various circuits. Now, most people, they go through the Formula One minors, whether it's Formula Renault, Formula 3, Formula 2, before they're able to qualify for Formula One. But he is obviously American, so he's driving currently for IndyCar. Super license points are awarded based on final standings in a series, and Herta is just 10th in the IndyCar this season. They are working on potentially trying to get him an exemption because he's currently on 32 points, and he needs 40 to get into Formula One. And unfortunately, he will not be able. There's no possible chance he'll be able to get enough points by the end of the season to get it the regular way. However, for the growth of the sport, it is potentially huge if an American driver is able to enter the sport, with obviously the success of Drive to Survive, the growing American audience. I want to point out, too, that Logan Sargent also is a Williams Academy F1 driver. He currently is in Formula 2 at this moment. But I just wanted to bring this up because Colton Herta has been like the wild card American driver that could potentially enter the sport next season. It's going to be very interesting to see how the FIA rules on this situation.
How old is he?
He is, I'll have to double check. He's in his early to mid 20s. I know that much. So it's not like he's been racing forever, but he has come out and said that he wants to race in F1. Like, that's his ultimate goal. And that, he unfortunately, because you're born, he's 22. So
Okay.
it was early 20s. Because when you're born in America, you're not necessarily born into that scene. I mean, obviously,
Right, yeah,
Formula
yeah.
One is very more international, more UK based. But yeah, it is the pinnacle of motorsport. So it'll be very interesting to see if they're able to go and get this guy an exemption to get him through. There has been talk of also an American team trying to join Formula One and bringing Colton Herta over, the Andretti Motorsport team. But that's currently been stalled because they're not the other team principals are not, they're pushing back on the potentially having another competition, another team to compete with. So it's a very big underlying storyline off the track for Formula One right now.
Well, if another American team came into the sport, then would they have to add another team to even it to 22 teams?
Well, so it's not 22 teams.
Or
So
how many teams is it?
it's 10 teams of 2 drivers apiece. So it's 20
drivers. That's what I got confused.
Yeah,
So,
no, you're good. So no, I mean you don't have to have an even number of teams. It can be, an odd number because I mean they've raced when the grid's been like 22, 24, 26. I think they had one year that was like 18 or something like that. So that's not necessarily the issue. I mean, it is a nice round number having it 10 teams, 2 drivers per race. But no, it's really just in terms of politics, money, and all the other lovely stuff we love to talk about in sports. But
yeah.
This is definitely a story that I'm going to be paying close attention to for sure.
Yeah, it could be something, I suppose, huh?
Yeah. But do you want to wrap it up with a little WNBA talk?
Yeah, let's Tyler, you want to come on and go back, you want to join us back on the podcast?
I know. I feel like every time we talk Formula One, it's just like we're giving the other person just some time to rest.
Go take a nap, go use the restroom, go get yourself a drink, whatever you need to do. But yeah, let's talk about some WNBA. Cullen, we're going to let you go ahead and start this off. Get emotional if you need.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to start off with the good because the WNBA is in the conference finals right now. The Chicago Sky and the Connecticut Sun, excuse me, are tied up at 2 apiece with Game 5 tomorrow night as well, along with the NFL season. So you might have to split your TV screens for that one. It'll be very interesting to see if Candace Parker can lead the Chicago Sky back to the WNBA finals. So definitely you want to make sure you check out that one. It's been a very, very competitive series, been a lot of back and forth, and we'll see. For the WNBA, Game 5s are everything. So very interested to see that. But yes, as Kevin alluded to, the Las Vegas Aces defeated the Seattle Storm 3-1 last night. Las Vegas ultimately coming with a win 97-92. Sue Bird is her final game. Her career comes to a close. She is one of the greatest WNBA basketball players of all time. She is a Seattle sports legend. I've talked about her accomplishments all the time on the podcast. She was the first one that I highlighted back in our first podcast way back in January of this year. And I've highlighted her numerous times throughout the show, so I'm not going to just completely divulge into it again. What I will say is thank you, Sue. You've been an incredible sports figure and role model, not only to, young girls and women that are trying to get in basketball, but for women in general in sports and just for, athletes in general of how to conduct yourself, how to consistently be one of the best to do it at your sport and do it at such a high level and with high class. And the WNBA is going to miss you, but we are very grateful for the time that you were here. And yeah, shout out to Sue Bird, man. It was a really great career.
Yeah. What I will say is, obviously, I haven't been keeping up with the WNBA as long as I should have. But and what I've recently seen and known, Sue Bird is hilarious.
Yeah.
I know she did that one broadcast. I can't remember who she did it with.
It was the Diana Taurasi.
Okay, yeah, she did it with Diana Taurasi for the women's college finals, and that was absolutely hilarious. So if we could potentially work up a Sue Bird TV deal where we could have her as a play-by-play or color commentator or what have you, as long as we can keep her around in the sports world, I think that'd be better for everyone.
Yeah.
She knows how to, like you said, she knows how to conduct herself, high class for a long time, showing everybody how it needs to be done. Legends in all sports respect her. It sucks to see, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, a record 13 All-Star appearances, 4 championships. It's been her entire career in the city of Seattle, former number 1 overall pick. No doubt about it, future first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, we're going to miss you, Sue. But like I said, she's definitely got a career in basketball in whatever she wants to do if she wants it. So definitely very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, I know we kind of liked it's not all bad though. I mean, I know for me it's going to be a little heart touching, but Becky Hammon in her first season as head coach of the Las Vegas Aces does advance to the finals. It'll be very interesting to see who she will be taking on. Obviously, as I previously mentioned, Game 5 is tomorrow night, along with the kickoff for the NFL season. So make sure you tune into that. But yeah, the WNBA playoffs are well in full swing, and they are about to come to their conclusion. Is there anything you guys want to say before we get out of here?
No, I mean, it was a good show, boys.
Yep.
I mean, a lot's going on. NFL's about to hit. It's going to hit hard. One thing I do want to talk about is just right quick before we get out of here. How's everybody's fantasy teams looking? I'm in 2 of my own right now.
I'm also in 2 leagues, but I think my teams are just kind of okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately like everyone feels great after the draft because they feel like they drafted the best team, the team that's going to go undefeated. Their sleepers are better than your sleepers, and we're about to just.
I'm bigger football brain than you are.
Exactly. Yeah. So can't wait for week 1 to get started to see who did come out on top this year and who didn't. So.
The highs and lows. Yeah, I definitely agree. As I did, I before or earlier in the episode, I predicted Derrick Henry to win MVP. I really hope that's true because I have him as my RB1 for both of my fantasy teams.
Oh my goodness.
So kind of riding high on Derrick Henry to say the absolute least. But yeah, I mean, for everybody's teams, everybody who's going into this NFL season, we wish you the best. We wish you the best in your fantasy leagues. Hope that you can talk smack to your friends. I know Cullen's playing in a gruesome fantasy league where there's actual punishments. So if y'all have punishments out there, that'd be hilarious if y'all could send them to us so that we could talk about those, because that would definitely be a topic worth talking about. But yeah, we'll see y'all today, next week, when the NFL has officially begun. Looking forward to the first game of the first week.
Yep.
And we'll talk about how our fantasy teams are looking and everything else that's going on. But for now, grab a stool and be a fool.
Yep. Peace.
Peace.